John, it wasn't just the presidency that was on the line last night, but there were other very high-profile Republicans who had tight races. Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell, they're keeping their Senate seats. Are you at all surprised that Republicans seem likely to keep the Senate?
Well, I was watching that very closely going into Election Day, and what struck me is you had so many seats that were virtually, it seemed to me anyway, and of course we're relying to a degree on polling, and in this case, the polling in the Senate races, I think, was a lot better. I don't know why. It's one of the things we'll have to study, but I saw 7 or 8 Senate seats that looked like they could go either way, and what seemed to happen is that most of them broke towards the Republicans. So I'm not entirely surprised because I saw that could happen. Lindsey Graham went up against Jamie Harrison, impressive candidate in South Carolina, who raised more than $50 million. I mean, this is presidential level money. And Lindsey Graham pulled it out. Now it is still South Carolina. It is still a very, very, very Republican state. But there, we could have a scenario where Biden eventually wins narrowly, and he faces a Republican Senate, and that looks, in fact, likely.
The votes are still being tallied, but early exits suggest that President Trump actually gained ground with every demographic except white men compared to his support in 2016, meaning that he won more Black and Latino voters. Can you talk about that? Did this surprise you at all?
Well, it's something that the Trump campaign talked about. I, frankly, was skeptical. But one thing they did in terms of Hispanics in Florida, which is probably where it was most significant and most importantly, is they played up this fear of socialism, that Joe Biden was essentially going to turn America into Venezuela. And he campaigned very hard for the Cuban vote, did everything they wanted, took a really hard line on Venezuela to get Venezuelan Americans in Florida. So it worked. I mean, look at the numbers in Miami-Dade County. That's perhaps the single most surprising county in the country in terms of Trump overperforming and Biden underperforming, and obviously a county with a lot of Hispanics. So he also did significantly better than he did 4 years ago among Black men. The exit polls showed about 18% of Black men voted for Donald Trump. That is something they talked about, courting African Americans. They said they were doing it by talking about criminal justice reform. You remember he ran an ad during the Super Bowl talking about criminal justice reform. And it's still just 18%, but last time I believe what he got was 10 or 11%. So he did significantly better than he did 4 years ago, and that Republicans generally have done.
You're absolutely right on the Florida and Miami-Dade angle. Let me tell you, the ads here were incredible. Every ad was about Fidel Castro, Ricardo Maduro, and Daniel Ortega. I'm actually looking forward to turning on the TV and watching reverse mortgage and urinary catheter ads again. That's how desperate I got. Yeah. But listen, I want to ask you, do you think it's now we should stop calling Florida and Arizona purple states? Is Florida now a red state? Is Arizona now a blue state? How do you see it?
Well, I think it's premature to call Arizona a blue state. That's going to still be very, very close. The Democrats had a very strong Senate candidate in Mark Kelly in Arizona. Martha McSally had already lost once the last time around. If once we call that race, if Martha McSally loses, she will have the distinction of having lost both Senate seats for her party. Both Senate seats, because she lost last time around, got appointed when John McCain died, and now would have lost again. But Florida is looking increasingly like a Republican state. And, when you were talking to Democrats going into the election, they knew that Florida was going to be the hardest of the battleground states, the true battleground states for them to flip, and that was the place where Republicans felt most confident.
And let's not forget that who started his vote for me again, really 2 weeks after he took the vows to be the president. He then went out campaigning. So he's been campaigning for 4 years. So it's not a surprise. It's not a huge surprise.
I mean, he did his first campaign rally during the transition. He wasn't even elected president yet. And he filed his papers for re-elections on January 20th, 2017. He has been the permanent campaign. I think I know him pretty well. He likes campaigning, I believe, a heck of a lot more than he likes governing. I mean, I don't know what a second term would look like, because he loves campaigning. That's what he's all about.
And that's, and that is reflected in a lot of what we've seen, his gains and all kinds of stuff. Because if you've been talking for 4 years, people will really hear you because you're the voice that's out there.
Yeah,
but Jonathan.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the rallies that he held were something of a phenomenon, unlike one thing we've really ever seen, at least in my lifetime. He was going to these places, outdoor rallies in the midst of a pandemic, frigid temperatures, and still he was attracting massive crowds. 27 rallies in 9 different states just over the past week. And meanwhile, Joe Biden, didn't do a fraction of that.
No, but he'll probably not come down with COVID either.
Right,
so
or
there's some
spread
good
it much
things
to
here.
anybody else.
Or spread it to anyone. Jonathan, it's always a pleasure to see you. I have a funny feeling we'll be talking again in the upcoming week or so.